What if I told you that those calcium pills you've been swallowing every morning for the last 10 years, the ones your doctor told you would protect your bones, might actually be doing more harm than good? And what if I told you that the very supplement you're spending your money on could be quietly increasing your risk of a heart attack while doing almost nothing to prevent the hip fracture you're so afraid of? I know that sounds insane coming from a doctor, but here's what nobody in the mainstream wellness world wants to admit to you. After age 50, most adults are faithfully taking calcium supplements because they've been told their bones will crumble without them. And yet the fracture rates keep climbing, the osteoporosis diagnoses keep coming. And new research is revealing something deeply uncomfortable. Those calcium pills might be depositing calcium not in your bones where you need it, but in your arteries where you absolutely do not. I quote M. Doctor William Lee, and for the last 18 years, I've specialized in how nutrition actually interacts with aging bodies, not in theory, not based on what we believed 30 years ago, but based on what the data shows right now. And I need to walk you through something that contradicts almost everything you've been told about bone health after 50, because the calcium conversation has changed, and nobody sat you down to explain it properly. Here, quote S, the core problem. When you swallow a calcium supplement, that calcium enters your bloodstream in one large, rapid spike. It's nothing like the slow, gradual absorption that happens when you eat calcium in food. Your body wasn't designed to handle a flood of calcium all at once, and when that spike hits your blood, your body has to figure out what to do with it. Some of it gets used, but a meaningful portion of it can end up where it doesn't belong, in the walls of your arteries, stiffening them, narrowing them, and increasing your risk of something no supplement bottle ever warns you about. Let me give you the numbers because you deserve to see them. A landmark meta-analysis published through the British Medical Journal reviewed over a dozen randomized controlled trials and found that calcium supplements taken without vitamin D increase the risk of heart attack by roughly 30%. 30%. Another major review from the National Institutes of Health found that calcium supplements increase the risk of cardiovascular disease by about 15% in healthy postmenopausal women, the exact group most likely to be taking them. And here's the part that should make you sit up straight. One study published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology tracked over 2,700 adults for 10 years and found that those who used calcium supplements had a 22% higher risk of developing coronary artery calcification. That's calcium building up in the arteries feeding your heart. Not someday, not theoretically, measurable, visible plaque in the very vessels your life depends on. Now I need to be very clear about something because this distinction matters enormously. The calcium you eat in food does not carry this same risk. When you eat a bowl of yogurt or a serving of sardines or a handful of almonds, the calcium comes packaged with other nutrients, protein, healthy fats, fiber, magnesium, that slow absorption and direct the calcium where it belongs. Food-sourced calcium raises your blood levels gradually over hours, not in a sudden spike. Multiple large studies have confirmed this. Dietary calcium is associated with better bone density and lower cardiovascular risk. Supplemental calcium is associated with the opposite. The source matters more than the amount. So the question becomes, if you stop wasting money on calcium pills, what actually works? What actually builds bone density after 50? What actually reduces your risk of that hip fracture you've been terrified of since the day you watched your own mother fall? Here's what the research actually supports. And I'm going to walk you through it carefully because I want you to walk away from this video with a real plan, not just a headline. Number one, vitamin D3. And I don't mean a token 400 international units. I mean enough to make a measurable difference. Here's why this comes first. You can eat all the calcium in the world, but without adequate vitamin D, your body absorbs only about 10 to 15% of it. With adequate vitamin D, absorption jumps to 30 to 40%. That's the difference between calcium doing its job and calcium just passing through you while you keep paying for supplements that aren't working. A comprehensive review published through the Journal of the American Medical Association analyzed over 30 randomized trials and found that vitamin D supplementation reduced the risk of hip fracture by roughly 20% in older adults. And critically, The benefit was strongest at doses between 800 and 2,000 international units daily, not the 400 that most multivitamins contain. I recommend getting your blood levels tested. You want your serum 25 hydroxyvitamin D above 30 nanograms per milliliter, and ideally closer to 40 to 50. For most adults over 50, that takes somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 international units daily, sometimes more depending on your baseline, your skin color, and how much time you spend outdoors. Pair vitamin D3 with a meal containing some fat. It's fat soluble, so that morning toast and butter or that lunch with olive oil actually helps your body absorb it. Dot number two. Vitamin K2, specifically in the form called MK7. If vitamin D3 is the conductor telling calcium where to go, vitamin K2 is the traffic cop making sure it actually gets there and doesn't take a wrong turn into your arteries. Here's the biochemistry in plain language. Your body produces a protein called osteocalcin, which acts like a magnet inside your bones, pulling calcium into the bone matrix where it belongs. But osteocalcin is produced in an inactive form. It needs to be activated, and vitamin K2 is the switch that turns it on. Without enough K2, your osteocalcin stays silent, and the calcium floating in your blood stays homeless, looking for somewhere to land. And one of the places excess calcium likes to land is the walls of your arteries. A study published in the journal Osteoporosis International followed postmenopausal women for 3 years and found that those supplementing with vitamin K2, specifically MK7 at 180 micrograms daily, had a significant reduction in bone loss at the spine and hip compared to placebo. And separate research from the Netherlands found that high dietary intake of vitamin K2 was associated with a 50% reduction in arterial calcification and cardiovascular death risk. 50%. K2 is found in meaningful amounts in only a handful of foods. Natto, a fermented soybean dish common in Japan, is the richest source by an enormous margin. If natto isn't part of your diet, and for most people outside Japan it's not, egg yolks, certain aged cheeses like Gouda and Brie, and chicken liver provide smaller but meaningful amounts. A quality K2MK7 supplement at 100 to 180 micrograms daily is what I recommend for most of my patients over 50. Number 3. Magnesium. Let me tell you about a patient of mine named Elaine, 64 years old, from Tucson, Arizona. Elaine came to me taking 1,200 milligrams of calcium daily, the maximum recommended, along with vitamin D. Her bone density scan was still getting worse year after year. She was frustrated and scared. Her mother had broken a hip at 72 and never walked independently again. When we looked at Elaine's diet and supplements, what was missing was magnesium. Here's what most people don't realize. Magnesium is required to convert vitamin D into its active form in your body. If you're magnesium deficient, which by the way roughly half of older adults are, your vitamin D can't do its job regardless of how much you're taking. And magnesium has its own direct role in bone health too. About 60% of your body's magnesium is stored in your bones, where it contributes to the actual physical structure of the bone crystal. A study from the University of Tennessee found that older adults with the highest magnesium intake had roughly 3% higher bone mineral density than those with the lowest intake. And while 3% might sound small, at the population level, it's associated with a significant reduction in fracture risk. Magnesium glycinate is the form I recommend for most people because it's well absorbed and gentle on the stomach. 300 to 400 milligrams at bedtime. And it has the added benefit of improving sleep quality, which has its own cascade of health benefits. Foods rich in magnesium include pumpkin seeds, almonds, spinach, black beans, and dark chocolate. Yes, dark chocolate. I'll take that prescription any day. Number 4. Prunes. I know, not glamorous, not the first thing anyone thinks of for bone health, but I need you to hear the research because it genuinely changed how I counsel my patients. A 12-month randomized controlled trial from Penn State University, published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, followed postmenopausal women consuming either 50 grams of prunes daily, that's about 5 to 6 prunes, or a control group eating no prunes. The prune group preserved their total hip bone mineral density. The control group lost bone density over the same period. Let me say that again because it's the opposite of what most people expect. The women eating a handful of prunes every day maintained their bone at the hip, while the women not eating prunes continued losing bone at the rate we've all been told is inevitable. And a follow up study published in 2024 confirmed that the bone structure and strength were preserved, not just the density numbers on a scan. What's happening here? Prunes are rich in a unique combination of nutrients that work synergistically on bone. They contain vitamin K, which we just discussed. They contain potassium, which reduces the acid load in your body that can trigger calcium leaching from bones. They contain boron, a trace mineral that helps your body retain calcium and magnesium. And they contain powerful polyphenols, or plant compounds that reduce oxidative stress and inflammation in the bone remodeling cells themselves. 5 to 6 prunes daily. Eat them as a snack, chop them into oatmeal or yogurt, or blend them into a smoothie. Simple, inexpensive, and backed by stronger evidence than almost any single supplement on the shelf. Number 5. Weight-bearing exercise. And before you roll your eyes or click away because you've heard this one before, let me be specific about what does and does not work, because the nuance changes everything. Walking is wonderful for your heart, your mood, your circulation, but it is not enough on its own to build meaningful bone density after 50. Your bones respond to load. They need to feel a force that makes them think, if I don't get stronger right here, I'm going to break. The most effective form of loading for bone density is resistance training with progressive overload, which simply means you gradually increase the weight or the resistance over time as your body adapts. A study from the University of Sydney followed postmenopausal women doing twice-weekly high-intensity resistance training, and I want to be specific here, they were lifting weights at 80 to 85% of their one repetition maximum, which means heavy enough that they could only do 5 to 8 repetitions before needing to rest. After 8 months, they had significantly higher bone mineral density at the spine and hip compared to women doing a home-based walking and stretching program. Now, does that mean you need to join a gym and start lifting heavy barbells on day one? Absolutely not. Start where you are. Bodyweight squats holding onto a chair, wall push-ups, step-ups on the bottom stair. Then add resistance gradually. Resistance bands, light dumbbells, a weighted vest during your walk. The key is progression. Your bones won't adapt unless the stimulus increases over time. 2 sessions per week is enough. 3 is better if you can manage it. But the dose-response relationship is real. More load equals more bone. Before we continue to number 6 through a few more things that I consider absolutely essential, I need to pause and ask a favor. If you've made it this far, it means this information matters to you. And you are exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. Someone who doesn't just want a headline, who wants the real science explained honestly without a supplement company's marketing department filtering it first. Please hit subscribe and tap that like button. Every subscription tells me this work matters, and it helps these videos reach another person over 50 who's been told outdated, incomplete information about their own bones and doesn't even know it yet. And I'm genuinely curious. Tell me in the comments, are you currently taking a calcium supplement, and has anyone ever explained to you the difference between calcium from food and calcium from pills? I read every single comment, and I'll be there. All right, back to it. Number 6. Collagen, specifically hydrolyzed collagen peptides. This is a newer area of bone research, but the early data is compelling enough that I've started recommending it for my patients with osteopenia and osteoporosis. Your bone is not just calcium crystals. About 30 to 40% of your bone is actually organic matrix, mostly collagen protein that provides the flexible scaffolding upon which calcium and other minerals crystallize. Think of it like the steel rebar inside concrete. Without the rebar, concrete crumbles under pressure no matter how thick you pour it. As you age, your body's collagen production declines significantly, starting around age 30 and accelerating after 50. A randomized controlled trial published in the journal Nutrients followed postmenopausal women taking 5 grams of collagen peptides daily for 12 months. The collagen group had a significant increase in bone mineral density at the spine and femoral neck compared to the placebo group. Another study found that collagen combined with vitamin D and calcium was more effective at preserving bone than vitamin D and calcium alone. I recommend 10 to 15 grams of hydrolyzed collagen peptides daily for my patients over 50 who are concerned about bone density. It dissolves easily in coffee or tea, it's virtually tasteless, and there's a growing body of evidence that it supports not just bone, but also joint cartilage, skin elasticity, and tendon strength, which matters because stronger tendons mean you're less likely to fall in the first place. Dot number 7. Reduce the sodium. This one costs you nothing, and it might be the single highest impact change on this list for some of you. Here's the mechanism. For every 2,300 milligrams of sodium your kidneys process, that's about 1 teaspoon of salt, your body excretes roughly 40 milligrams of calcium in your urine. That's calcium being pulled directly from your blood, which your body then has to replace by pulling calcium from your bones. Over a day, a week, a year, a decade, that constant drain adds up to measurable bone loss. A study published in the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research found that postmenopausal women with the highest sodium intake lost bone at a significantly faster rate than those with the lowest intake, independent of their calcium consumption. Let me put that in practical terms. If you're eating a typical American diet of processed foods, deli meats, canned soups, frozen meals, restaurant food, you're likely consuming 3,400 to 4,000 milligrams of sodium daily. That's pushing 60 to 70 milligrams of calcium lost through your urine every single day. Over a year, that's roughly 25 grams of calcium flushed away. And if you're also taking calcium supplements to compensate, you're creating a cycle where you pay for calcium, eat too much salt, and then pee that calcium right out, while the supplement spike potentially deposits some of it in your arteries instead. Here's how to fix it without making your food taste like cardboard. Cook at home more. Use herbs and spices instead of salt. Taste your food before salting it. When you buy packaged foods, scan the label. Anything over 400 milligrams of sodium per serving is going to add up fast. Your taste buds will actually reset within about 2 to 3 weeks. Foods you used to find normally salted will start tasting too salty, and you'll regain sensitivity to the natural flavors that salt has been masking for years. Dot number 8. Protein. Specifically, adequate animal and plant protein throughout the day, not just at dinner. This is probably the most overlooked piece of the bone health puzzle because we've been so fixated on calcium that we forgot bones are living tissue that needs protein to maintain their structure. I mentioned earlier that 30 to 40% of your bone is collagen matrix. That matrix is protein, and your body needs dietary protein to continually repair and replace that protein scaffold. A meta-analysis published through the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition reviewed over 20 studies and found that higher protein intake was associated with higher bone mineral density at the hip and spine and a significant reduction in hip fracture risk. The effect was strongest in adults over 65. Here's the catch. Protein distribution matters. Many older adults eat very little protein at breakfast and lunch, then load up on a large portion at dinner. Your body can only use about 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal for muscle and tissue synthesis. The rest gets used for energy or stored. So spreading your protein intake across 3 meals, roughly 25 to 30 grams at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, is more effective for bone maintenance than eating 70 grams at dinner and 10 grams the rest of the day. What does 25 to 30 grams look like? 3 large eggs at breakfast, a palm-sized portion of salmon or chicken at lunch, a cup of Greek yogurt, a scoop of whey or plant protein in a smoothie, a cup and a half of lentils. I want you to think about your typical day. If your breakfast is toast and coffee, you're getting almost no protein. If your lunch is a small salad, same problem. Fix the distribution and you'll support your bones, your muscles, and your overall strength, which together dramatically reduce your risk of falling in the first place. Let me tell you about Robert, 71 years old, a retired high school science teacher from outside Denver. Robert's wife had read about calcium and heart disease risk online and brought him to see me. He'd been taking 1,000 milligrams of calcium carbonate daily for 15 years, the cheapest, most common form sold in every grocery store, because his primary care doctor had told him to after a routine physical in his late 50s. Nobody had ever reevaluated that recommendation. Nobody had checked whether it was actually helping. When we ran Robert's coronary artery calcium score, it came back significantly elevated for his age, in the 85th percentile. Now, I can't prove the calcium supplements caused that, but I can tell you that we stopped the supplements immediately, shifted him to dietary calcium sources, sardines, yogurt, collard greens, almonds, added vitamin D3, K2, and magnesium, reduced his sodium, increased his protein at breakfast, and started him on twice weekly resistance training. 18 months later, his bone density scan was stable. It hadn't improved dramatically, but it had stopped declining, which at age 71 is a genuine win. And his repeat calcium score 2 years later had not progressed further. I can't promise you the same results, and I would never try. Every body is different. Every medical history is unique. But I can tell you that the evidence increasingly suggests we've been aiming the bone health cannon in the wrong direction for decades, and millions of people over 50 are still taking supplements that may be causing more harm than benefit while missing the interventions that actually work. Dot. So where does this leave you? Let me summarize it clearly because I don't want you leaving this video confused about what to do tomorrow morning. If you're over 50 and taking a calcium supplement, I want you to have a conversation with your doctor. Show them the research I've referenced. It's all linked in the description below. Ask whether, given the cardiovascular risk data, a calcium supplement is still appropriate for your specific situation. In most cases, shifting to dietary calcium from foods like yogurt, sardines, leafy greens, almonds, and fortified plant milks is safer and equally effective. Make sure your vitamin D is optimized. Get tested, aim for 40 to 50 nanograms per milliliter. Add vitamin K2, specifically MK7, at 100 to 180 micrograms daily. Add magnesium glycinate at 300 to 400 milligrams at bedtime. Eat 5 to 6 prunes daily. Start resistance training twice a week and progress the load gradually. Add 10 to 15 grams of collagen peptides daily. Reduce your sodium. Spread 25 to 30 grams of protein across 3 meals per day. That is a bone health protocol that addresses what your bones actually need, not just what a supplement company wants you to keep buying.